You're the one everyone calls when there's a crisis. You're the one who remembers everyone's appointments, everyone's feelings, everyone's breaking points, while your own exhaustion sits in your chest like a stone you've learned not to mention. You look like the competent one, the reliable one, and inside you feel like you're performing a role you never auditioned for but can't figure out how to leave. Maybe you tell yourself you're just naturally responsible, that you're the strong one. But underneath that, in the quiet moments you don't let anyone see, there's a belief you can't shake, that you're only valuable when you're useful. That the moment you stop managing, mediating, remembering, caring, you'll stop mattering. What if that exhaustion isn't a sign that you're not doing enough, but evidence that you've been carrying a weight that was never yours to carry in the first place? What if every ounce of competence you've built came at a cost no child should ever have to pay? Here's what happened. Somewhere in your childhood, you were handed a job that wasn't supposed to be yours. Maybe a parent was struggling with illness, with addiction, with their own unhealed pain, and someone had to hold the family together. Maybe your siblings were younger, and you became the buffer, the translator. The one who could read the emotional weather and adjust everyone's sails before the storm hit. You weren't asked if you wanted this, you just looked around one day and realized you were already doing it. Researchers call this parentification trauma. It's what happens when a child is given the emotional instruction manual for the whole family before they've even learned to read their own feelings. Dr. Bradley Windle's clinical observations on eldest daughters show a pattern. These children don't just take on tasks, they absorb responsibility for other people's emotional survival. And here's the part that matters. You didn't fail at childhood. Childhood failed you. This wasn't a role you chose because you were naturally better at it. It was a role you were assigned because the adults around you needed you to be better at it than any child should have to be. Sibling-focused parentification research confirms this. Eldest children aren't born more capable. They become more capable because the family system needed someone to step into that space, and you were the one standing closest to the gap. So you stepped in. And you've been standing in that gap ever since. That exhaustion you carry? It's not proof that you're doing it wrong. It's proof that you've been doing it since before you even knew what it was. When you were learning to walk, other kids were learning that love was a given. You were learning something else entirely. You were learning that love wasn't freely given. It was earned. Through performance, through being indispensable, through never needing anything yourself. Think of it like this. Most children learn the world is safe enough to make mistakes in. You learned the world is only safe when you don't make mistakes. When you manage everyone else's needs so well that no one has to manage yours. That becomes your operating system. The child brain is brilliant at survival, and yours learned early, I'm safe when I'm useful. I'm loved when I'm perfect. Psychologists call this the currency of conditional regard, but let's just call it what it felt like. A contract you didn't know you were signing. Be perfect, and you get to stay. Need something and you risk everything. This is where family systems theory becomes important. In any family system, roles get assigned to maintain equilibrium. One person becomes the peacemaker, another becomes the scapegoat. You became the one who holds it all together. Not because you wanted power, but because you wanted safety. And the only safety you saw was in making yourself indispensable. Here's what no one told you then. That contract was never fair. You were never supposed to earn love. You were supposed to receive it because you existed. But you didn't get that option. So you built an entire personality around being the person who doesn't need it. And that, right there, is why you're exhausted. Because performing love is not the same as being loved. And your nervous system knows the difference. Now here's the part that might hurt to hear. But it's said with so much respect for how hard you've tried, you're still doing it. In your adult relationships, in your friendships, in the way you show up at work, you're still signing that same contract over and over. You give more than you take. You manage other people's emotions. You become the person everyone leans on, and you've almost forgotten what it feels like to lean back. Psychologists call this repetition compulsion. We repeat the patterns we learned earliest because they're the ones that feel like home, even when home was exhausting. You keep trying to earn love the way you learned to earn safety, by being the one who gives more, needs less, manages everyone's emotional weather. You do this because the attachment patterns formed in parentified relationships taught you that your job is to make sure everyone else is okay first. Let me introduce you to Daniel. He's 34, a project manager. When Daniel was 10, his mother became chronically ill, and he became the parent to his 2 younger siblings. He managed their schedules, he handled their meltdowns, he did their homework with them while his own sat unfinished. He learned to be calm when they were scared, strong when they were falling apart. He gave up sports, gave up friends, gave up the entire idea of being a kid. In adulthood, Daniel overfunctioned everywhere. In his romantic relationships, he was always the rock, never the one who leaned. At work, he took on everyone's stress. He was exhausted, lonely, and he didn't know how to stop because stopping felt like disappearing. Then therapy gave him language for what he'd been doing. His overfunctioning wasn't generosity, it was survival. Once he saw that, he started practicing something radical, letting other people carry their own weight. He started saying, "I can't take that on right now." Some people got uncomfortable. The ones who mattered stayed. And for the first time since he was 9 years old, Daniel felt light. You're still the one everyone calls when there's a crisis. That hasn't changed. But here's what can change. The story you tell yourself about why that is. The exhaustion you carry isn't proof that you're not enough. It's evidence of a childhood you spent being too much for everyone else and not enough for yourself. Every skill you have, your competence, your reliability, your ability to read a room and know exactly what everyone needs, all of it is real. But it came at a cost that was never supposed to be yours to pay. The role you've been performing your whole life wasn't your identity. It was a survival strategy, and you're allowed to stop performing now. You don't have to earn your place anymore. You never did. If you're ready to stop performing and start living, you're not alone in that. The people who love you for who you are, not for what you do, they're still going to be there. And you're allowed to begin.